values reflect? Do those values reflect what you would like to see moving forward in terms of guiding your principles? And the only thing I think that you might want to consider is, we're hoping that the board is going to be able to vote and adopt this draft plan. And it's really best practice to at least annually, this is a 3-year plan, and maybe every 6 months as an organization, look at those goals and what you have set in terms of the timeline for completion. And if you need to make some adjustments because of the external environment or the internal environment, that you would do that. So that's what I have to say. I would welcome any affirmation, confirmation that vision, mission, and values do speak to you, that it does represent the work that we've done over all of the months. I just think it was an efficient and inclusive process. So tell us what is not working for you, what's missing for you, what questions you have of us. I'm not.
Tricia, do you want to start with whatever feedback the advisory committee had so we can represent folks who aren't here first?
Yeah, I sent the agenda, or I'm sorry, the strategic plan to the advisory committee, and I heard back from Michelle, and she said that she was really happy. She really, thinks that this aligns with what she felt that we should be doing, and as did Emmanuel. And no, I didn't hear back from anyone else. The only piece of feedback which I agreed with Emmanuel, and then I went through and I actually have some like detailing notes that I don't know if we want to go. I don't know if it's necessary to go through that now or like in a separate conversation, but under the aspirations,
under the values.
No, we're not. Are we not? If we're not there yet, the only thing was that under the aspirations, it says Black leaders, and Emmanuel pointed out Black vendors and shoppers. That we wanted that to include BIPOC and LGBTQ plus. But that was the only feedback. The advisory committee had nothing but positive things to say. But if we're going to go through it like bit by bit, we can. I'll bring that up when we get there.
Yeah, I'm not recommending that we need to go through it bit by bit.
Okay.
But again, we planned this 30 minutes that we got under the assumption that you had read it and you were coming to tell us what doesn't sit right with you through all of the meetings. So
the only thing that from my perspective that there are a few like details in here that are like not like correct, like and I don't know, like we can go through that privately.
Or just give me like one example.
Like, for example, like it says we have an annual budget of $200,000. We don't. We have an annual budget of 158. And that to me, and I don't know enough about strategic plans to know about that, but to me, if we go to a funder and they think we have $40,000+ more than we do with that number, that makes me nervous. Like that's the kind of thing that I am concerned about. There is like language, hold on, I'm trying to
well, while you're looking for something, if I could just say to the group, I remember vividly that we had a discussion that most strategic plans have something about their operating budget, just as a kind of a guidepost for the organization. But we said clearly you didn't have to do that. And I know I read something that led us to put that number in. We can take it down or we can take it out. It's totally it's your document.
It says under 200,000. So I think you were just ballparking it, but I think if we're going to include it, we should probably put in 150,000 instead of 200,000 to get a little closer to the real number.
Does anybody feel that there's like a strong upside or a strong downside to putting a number in?
Well, I still am going back to the idea, and so that I really thought, and I went back and I looked at the original like agreement between us, and I really thought that there was going to be more financial guidance with this. And I know we talked about that the last meeting, but I just thought that we were going to have more of a component of, and this is just my anxiety of as somebody who's going to be, you know, like doing this, like I'm the employee and board members are
Right.
going to come and go. I mean, this is like a real big point of anxiety for me, that there is not like a roadmap with numbers. And when I went back and I looked at the initial agreement with Washington Consulting, it does say there that we were going, that was part of it, the six prong plan, the here end of the service agreement, which I have. It did say that number 6 was a financial plan that projects the income and expense structure and accounts for the resources required to implement each strategy. And I thought that was gonna be part of this process. I wasn't, so that's just like my biggest
Okay.
like stomach ache around this whole process.
Well,
So,
we don't want you to have a stomach ache.
yeah.
And we really, as we went through the process, it felt like you really wanted to stay more general. You know, we recommended.
I don't really have that same impression. I felt like we talked about this a lot, and I felt kind of like pushback, like that it wasn't something that you guys were doing. But then when I went back and looked, I mean, I've always been pro give us the finances. So it's just, you know, I think it's important, especially considering we are only $157,000 organization. Like, how in the heckle are we gonna pay for a lot of, I mean, you know, and how are we going to get, where is it, like, that's like a roadmap that like I need, and I don't know where it comes from. And I thought it was coming from this work with you guys.
Yeah. Okay. Any board, anybody want to say anything? So, you know, one of our recommendations was that we would, you know, look at how you're going to diversify your revenues coming in. And what I heard was we didn't feel that we needed any type of ad hoc committee, which was one of our recommendations, that you had that expertise on your board to do that. So,
but having the expertise on our board doesn't necessarily mean we don't need a roadmap of how to do it. Like, we definitely don't need an ad hoc committee of
okay.
retired funders. We have that expertise on our board, but we do need that help.
I think that we would benefit from a facilitated conversation that takes us through the things that, so obviously the first step is, do we agree on what's here, right? And so that's what we tried to start out with is what's here and heard. And I do think we need to get back to that conversation shortly. And then I think once we agree that these are the things that we want to be doing, we would benefit from a facilitated conversation, taking us through the things that require financial resources, to have a discussion around what is a reasonable range of money to associate with those activities, so that we can formalize it into this document that we would use to then fundraise. Is something that I think would help Trisha with her ulcer, and also help us as a board. You know, we're about to have a finance committee conversation about what, if any, funds do we have on hand to be able to mobilize for any of this, even small parts of it in year one, and how much do we have to make a plan as a board to fundraise for using, you know, what we claim to be the skills we have at hand. So that's my 2 cents, but I certainly don't want to dominate this space with my thoughts. So other board members, what are your expectations in terms of a financial framework for this?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. This being, you know, a plan to execute our vision, if we can include those sorts of financials, include that sort of language, and sort of how do we get there, that would help.
All right, well, then that's the direction that we will get back to. When I look, if you look at page 7, or any part of it that just kind of lists the 5 initiatives. Are we saying that we're good with these 5 things? And what is missing for you is how do we pay for it? Is it how do we pay for it, or how much money is it going to cost?
How much do we think it'll cost? Definitely not how do we pay for it. I think that's definitely our job and shouldn't be expected of you, especially at this point in the game.
Okay, well, so if we look at initiative 1, increase organizational support and sustainability, that we talked about writing job descriptions, doing some type of salary analysis, and a staff leadership succession plan. I remember vividly having a conversation saying, these are tasks that you could clearly do in-house, but you could also contract out these HR related services. So just a hypothetical here. So are we saying for initiative 1, what you need from Diane and I to say, if you subcontract out this type of work would probably cost about X number? That's what you're looking for.
And I think the other thing that might be helpful is an idea of how long it would take if we did it ourselves. That way we can say, do we want to invest 100 hours of board time, or do we want to invest a certain number of dollars?
Okay, and that's great. It's just, I don't really know the expertise on your board. I don't know if you have somebody that could do this in, you know, a couple of hours and submit it to the board for review. I don't know that I could say how long it would take your board to do this stuff. So I think we could.
Maybe we sort of meet in the middle, and then there's a financial range or suggestion from your expertise of doing,
Yeah, we can go out and look in the market and,
and then we'll do our part and say, well, what skills do we have and how long do we think this will take us? So we'll be responsible for the how many hours and how much investment of time of ours do we think this is? And if we could look to you for suggested ranges for investment for these, then I think that would do the trick. Does that meet everybody's needs, or does anybody want something more? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So the second initiative, a similar thing, talking about the ideal size and composition of the board. Is that a money thing that you see, or is that something you feel? I'm just trying to make sure when Diane and I get off of this call, we just have a couple minutes left, we know exactly what we need to bring back to you.
I don't think this has a price tag associated with it. This one.
Everybody agree with that? Okay. So grow contributed income. So we talked about strengthening relationships and increasing funding from current funders.
I mean, I would like to see like a possible like budgetary bucket for grant writing or assisting me with grant writing, or some, because I do rely on the board to edit and look at grants, and they do a great job, but there are times when things are, quick turnaround, or the board just like doesn't have time, or it's a conflict of interest and they can't. And so it would be nice if that existed to have.
And you have grant writers that you work with, right?
Yeah, Jackie, Mia, and Karime, who are all on the board. And
no, but I'm saying there's no contracted grant writers.
No, I usually like write the grants, and then they look at them and give me suggestions and rewrite problematic sections.
So all you need from us is kind of like an average hourly rate for what a grant writer in your sector goes for?
I think so, yeah. And then, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I had a comment, but please finish, Trisha and Sheila. Sheila and Diane, I'm sorry, I know I missed our last conversation. So, while we're talking about initiative 3, I just wanted to throw this out there. And if this has already been discussed, please tell me to step aside. I like all of the goals that have been set. I agree about budgeting. And I just had a question if it was brought up, there aren't any metrics around how much or how many or, what does success look like for these goals? And I wanted to know if that was something that was talked about or something that we could explore.
I was going to ask the same question because I think we need to look at it from the perspective of what is our goal? How much additional contributed income do we want to generate? And then say how many grant writing hours do we then need in order to achieve that goal? And then, that combined with the data on the rate gets us to what is this going to cost?
Thank you.
So yeah, I think we need to set a target for that one since it is monetary.
I just had a question about that rationale for initiative. When you, in the language, it says Handmade Arcade has an annual signature fundraising event. We have an appeal, but I don't really consider this is just like, I guess, a nitty gritty question of like, do we consider the Friday night event, like, do we consider that our fundraiser or just part of the holiday event? Because I feel like if we're gonna do a fundraising gala-y type thing, we should separate it away from the holiday event. So like just that language, I think I kind of got caught up on the
Okay.
word event. So maybe appeal would work better there.
No problem at all. I mean, again, we put down what we thought was right, and that's what we're here to do to.
No, I mean, I
Right.
think this is wonderful. It's just, there's like little, things
Yeah,
that only are.
we want to
live
try to
inside
get
my
it
head.
all because,
Yeah,
you have this starting
Yeah.
this month.
no, I agree. And then, yeah, that was my comment for that initiative. So
I have a question, just to go back to Tracy's question, and I think it was Rachel, about the amount for this initiative. Is this something that we're going to talk about later? Is this something we're going to talk about? We only have a half hour on the call, so I guess it would be a later conversation to kind of look at this. Tell me your thoughts, Sheila. I see your face.
Well, no, we definitely don't have enough time to do this tonight.
Mhm.
But all I can say is I know, like, my file is this big, that at one point we started talking about some specifics of percents, these metrics, and backed away from that. And I'm not quite sure why we decided to go a more.
I think that we weren't quite at a point from a board perspective from like just my back history with this. Tracy's a new treasurer, and we've really been doing a ton of work this past month and a half to like get our QuickBooks and our budget and everything like making sense to everyone, and that in a way that it has never looked before. And like Tracy's been killing it in that world of like taking reports and making them make sense. Like I think now, having done that work with Tracy and now looking at this from a new lens, from my perspective, I'm like, okay, we're now at a point where our books are ready to like have this conversation. So it's like it's all happening.
That's great. That's great. That's great. So I guess to Diane's point, do you all want to start throwing some numbers out to us, or do we need to have a more rational, focused discussion? I really didn't expect that we were going to need another meeting, but it sounds like we do. So, but tell me what would make the most sense for you. I don't know what your schedules are for the summer. I don't.
We have dedicated at least 30 minutes of time to all of our board meetings in the foreseeable future to strategic planning, knowing that we would hold them as a placeholder for you folks until we had a plan. And then once we had a plan, we would need to be accountable for it in future board meetings. So on our part, the only thing that I know for sure is that we have time in our August meeting. And I think that if that means that we have to adjust the date of when this plan starts, then
That's an easy thing for sure.
Is anybody feeling like we need to try to organize an in-between board meeting?
Yeah, I mean, should we have like a strategic plan, like just a board?
That
meeting we
ad hoc
come-
group?
Yeah, and then we come to the August meeting with like points that maybe we can share with Sheila and Diane beforehand, so it's all.
And then we can just sort of end together at the
Yeah,
next
Does
meeting.
that make sense? I think that makes sense.
I think it comes down to, are there people besides me who want to raise their hand as interested in that ad hoc huddle up? Great. As long as we have 3 or 4 folks, I think. Oh, great. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through to see who I've got. Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's doable. If now, of course, Diane and Sheila, it's summer and y'all are busy, and I think you probably thought you wouldn't have to do this. So how do you feel about that? Would you prefer the ad hoc in between next month, or would you like to do it at the next board meeting?
I would really like to do whatever is necessary for you to be in a position to approve your plan in August.
Okay, I think the
I mean,
ad hoc meeting next month is so we can get detailed and nitty gritty and everybody can get their feelings and thoughts out, and we can be sure that we have all of our notes and edits, and Trisha has a chance to wordsmith on the things that are important to her, and she's seeing what she needs to see. And we can all agree by the end of that meeting that all the notes are there. We can review the draft before the board meeting as we do. And then the idea is that in the next board meeting, we should be, I mean, ideally, we wouldn't even, besides we just want to end well with you in session. There shouldn't be work happening in session. It should just be sort of a brief reflection of how things went, and we should be approving it ideally, I think.
So how will we get the date set for this ad hoc committee meeting?
If you are willing, if board members, if you are willing to be part of that ad hoc meeting, will you please drop a line in the chat? And then I will send a poll right after this, and I'll focus, as I have, on the same time that we usually have board meetings. So in the evening from 6:30 to 8. And if you drop that you're interested, even if, I'm going to have to take majority availability. So if you drop that you're interested, please know that I will just have to pick whatever date the majority can attend, and that may leave 1 or 2 folks out in the interest of moving forward. So please also feel free to raise your hand if you're even just interested, because we need to make sure we have, 3 or 4 people ultimately there.
Okay, and what Diane and I will do is we will huddle and go through, and obviously, Trisha, if you have like other edits, like it's not an event, it's an appeal.
Yeah.
And, taking down your budget number to 150,000 plus or minus, or however you want that, and anything else that you have, just send that to us.
Okay.
Because that sounds like nothing anybody's going to necessarily need to approve.
No, it's little,
That's an
it's just like
edit.
little like words.
If you could just send that to us, that
Absolutely.
would be great before the ad hoc
Absolutely.
meeting. Diane and I will go through the 5 strategic goals and identify everything that we think could possibly have a metrics or that needs some association with money, and have a recommendation for those. And you can, approve it or not approve it when we get to the ad hoc committee, but you will have something to respond to. And so that will be our format, that you just say, we don't think we could do this for $10,000. And we'll tell you, well, we talked to 5 consultants and this was the average that we got. So change it however you want.
Love it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
This is great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
look forward to, the sooner we can get that July date, the better. I'm going to be away the first part of July, which probably wouldn't work anyway, but
So is Jackie, so.
okay.
What I want to say is, Trisha, those edits that you have, you and I can talk. And we'll get at least this document the way that you want it to look, and then we'll add the financial
Okay.
piece.
That sounds good. I'll email you tomorrow, Diane. We'll schedule.
Okay.
something.
And the metrics,
And
the money and the metrics.
Yeah.
That's what you need from us, right? Money and metrics.
Yeah, love that tagline for the next ad hoc
Okay.
meeting. Money and metrics, y'all.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
Have a Great one. Happy Father's Day to your.
Oh, thank you. Bye, Diane. Bye, Sheila.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Diane, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna stop the recording.